My name is Robert, and I'm 79 years old. I spent most of my life chasing things I thought mattered, and I'm only now beginning to understand what I missed while I was looking the other way. I remember the exact moment I stopped tasting my food, though I didn't know it at the time. It was a Tuesday morning in 1987. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my wife Margaret, and she'd made eggs the way she always did, soft scrambled, the way I'd loved them since we were first married. But that morning I was reading a spreadsheet on a piece of paper next to my plate, some numbers that weren't adding up the way my boss wanted them to. I forked the eggs into my mouth, and I swallowed them, and I have no memory of what they tasted like. None at all. Margaret asked me if they were good, and I said yes, and I meant it, but I hadn't actually tasted them. That's when it happened, I think. That's when I started disappearing from my own life. The thing about becoming numb is that it doesn't feel like anything. There's no moment where you wake up and think, today I will stop noticing the world. It happens so gradually that you don't see it happening. You're too busy. You're climbing something. You're trying to make partner at the firm. You're trying to buy a bigger house. You're trying to prove something to someone. And by the time you look around, 30 years have gone by and you can't remember the last time you really looked at your wife's face. Margaret laughed a lot. She had this laugh that started in her chest and came out like she was surprised by her own joy. I heard it thousands of times, I'm sure. But somewhere in the middle of those thousands of times, I stopped actually hearing it. I'd respond to it. I'd smile. But the sound itself wasn't reaching me anymore. I was too far away. Even though I was sitting right there next to her, I was somewhere else, always somewhere else. At the office, in my head, rehearsing conversations, planning the next thing. The laugh would happen, and I would register it the way you register that the light has turned green. Information, not an experience. When I was a boy, I used to sit on the front porch with my grandfather, and we didn't talk much, we just sat there. And I remember the light in the afternoon would come through the trees at a certain angle, and it would turn everything gold, the grass, the side of the house, his face, and I remember thinking that I was seeing something important, though I couldn't have told you what. I was just a kid, maybe 7 or 8, and I was paying attention to something. I don't know how else to describe it. I was just there, completely there, watching the light move across the world. I haven't sat still like that in 50 years. Not really. Not the way he taught me to, without doing anything else, without thinking about what comes next. And I retired in 2009. Margaret was still alive then. She was 68, still strong, still laughing. And I thought, now I can finally pay attention. Now I can finally be here. But by then, something had already been taken from me, and I couldn't quite get it back. I would try. I'd sit with her in the morning and tell myself to notice things, to taste the coffee, to look at her face. But it's hard to force yourself to feel something you've spent 30 years training yourself not to feel. Presence isn't something you can decide to turn back on like a switch. It's more like a muscle, and if you don't use it, it atrophies. And I had let it atrophy. Margaret died in 2015. Pneumonia. It was fast, which I'm grateful for, though I didn't feel grateful at the time. I felt angry. Not at her, at myself, at all the mornings I could have really tasted my eggs, all the times she laughed and I wasn't quite listening, All the afternoons when I could have sat with her the way my grandfather taught me to sit, with my whole self present, but instead I was half somewhere else, thinking about money or status or some problem that seemed so urgent at the time, but which I can't even remember now. After she died, I had nothing but time, and finally I began to notice things again. It was almost like learning a language I used to speak. At first it felt strange, uncomfortable. I'd be sitting in a coffee shop, and I'd catch myself really tasting the coffee, and it would feel like I was being indulgent, like I should be doing something productive instead. But there was nothing to do. No one needed me to be anywhere, so I kept going. I started to notice the way morning light comes into my kitchen window. It's different every day, depending on the season and the time and the angle of the sun. In winter it's pale and comes in late. In summer it's bright and golden, and it arrives early, before I'm even fully awake. I started to notice the way people talk to strangers. There's this whole vocabulary of kindness that I had stopped hearing. A woman at the grocery store will ask the cashier about her weekend, and I mean really ask, really listen to the answer, and something in that exchange, something in that small attention they pay to each other, it changes something. It reminds me that we're all real to each other, even if we're trying to pretend we're not. I started cooking again, the way Margaret and I used to on Sunday afternoons. Nothing fancy, just simple things. Tomato soup, bread, and I'd actually taste them. I'd leave the spoon sit in my mouth for a moment before I swallowed, and I'd think about the tomatoes, where they came from, how they grew under the sun, and then somehow they ended up in my bowl. And I was tasting the sun. In a way, I was tasting the whole chain of things that had to happen for that moment to exist. It's strange, the things you realize when you're finally old enough to know better. The wisdom I've gathered. It hasn't made me happy. Exactly. It's made me sad sometimes, because I know what I lost. I know the weight of all those moments I wasn't present for, all those times Margaret laughed, and I didn't really hear her, all those meals I swallowed without tasting, all those afternoons when the light was gold and I was somewhere else entirely. But there's something else too. There's a kind of sweetness in it, a tenderness, because even though I can't get those moments back, I can have new ones. I can sit in the morning light and really see it. I can taste my food and think about where it came from. I can listen to a stranger talk about their life and actually let it matter to me. I can practice presence the way my grandfather taught me all those years ago without even knowing that's what he was teaching me. I don't know if what I've learned counts as wisdom. And wisdom usually sounds like it's supposed to help you avoid mistakes. And I'm not sure my mistakes can be avoided anymore. They're just part of my life now. They're just the shape of the road I walked. But if there's anything I'd tell someone younger, someone still climbing toward something, it would be this. The thing you're climbing toward, whatever it is, it won't taste like you think it will. The view from the top isn't as interesting as the view you're missing on the way up. And the people you're with, the ones you're rushing past, they're the only thing that's actually real. Everything else, all of it, it's just noise. And one day you'll be old, and you'll finally have time to listen, and you'll realize that the music was playing the whole time. You just weren't quite paying attention. I'm paying attention now. It's late, maybe too late for some things, but it's not too late for the coffee. It's not too late for the light. It's not too late to really hear someone when they're talking to you. And that, I've learned, is enough. That has to be enough, because it's all we really ever have.